Welcome to Starkey Sound Bites. I'm your host, Dave Fabry, Starkey's Chief Hearing Health Officer. Before we dive in, please go ahead and hit like and subscribe. And every time you do this, it helps us improve our reach to help more people hear better and live better. Now, June is Men's Health Month, which is a great time to talk about men's hearing health. Now, our guest for today's episode is a return guest to Sound Bites. And the last time we chatted, it was one of my favorite episodes. I really love speaking with you, Tyson Gillies. You're a great advocate for talking about hearing loss in men and that it doesn't stigmatize you. It, in fact, empowers you. And I'm delighted to welcome you back to Starkey Sound Bites.
I appreciate you, Dave. Always good to have a conversation with you. And I'm super thrilled to be back here.
And I love the background. We were talking before we turned on the recording and everything. You're down in Miami, so it sort of fits. It's a beautiful geometric background there, and enjoy your time. But and I appreciate your taking the time out of your busy schedule. You're all over the place, and to talk with us today about the importance of men's hearing health. And so, beginning with that, you as an athlete understand this conversation. Typically, when we talk about men's health, focuses on physical fitness. But why should hearing be a priority when we're talking about men's health?
Well, Dave, I feel like that's anything. It's confidence and overcoming certain types of insecurities. Taking me as an example, I've always been, a huge advocate when it comes to being physically fit. But that derived from the insecurities and the bullying that I had to, overcome from childhood. So the two kind of just complemented each other. And, now it's just a part of me. It's feeling good in my own skin. And that really allows me it really shadows actually thinking about my hearing impairment and the frustrations and struggles that I know that young men, women, and people all over the world have to overcome themselves.
It's such an important point that you raise. And unfortunately, this is not the first time that I've talked with other individuals who were born with hearing loss, and in some cases, significant hearing loss, where they were in this day and age, and you're a young guy, that they were bullied because of their hearing loss often, and they felt insecure about that. And it is often a difficult or different rather experience from what people, let's say my age, who are now for the first time dealing with hearing loss experience. And we'll get to that in a minute, but the unique aspect of your journey, if you will, was just, it seems impossible to me, but it's still the case that people are made fun of because of their hearing loss when they're a kid growing up. And in your case, as you said, that really motivated you to be better, stronger, faster than your other friends who didn't have hearing loss. And clearly, that served as a motivation that enabled you to really be at the top of your game. Talk a little bit about what you do now, because I think it's so impressive the way that you've been such a strong advocate and mentor to young kids and boys in particular who have significant hearing loss. And talk a little bit about your experience at mentoring and working and thriving, really, if you will, in the sports areas that you've been involved in, and there have been multiple.
Yeah, my story with, retiring from baseball due to injuries, unfortunately, I turned to what I know, and that's baseball, that's hockey, everything that I grew up with, my passions, my first loves. And with T21 Performance Organization, that is about mentoring in baseball. But a lot of it is, and actually the most important part is building character, morale, and just, giving these athletes, something to be passionate about, something to work towards. It's not about being the next professional baseball, hockey player. It's just about wanting something and being able to, create a sense of urgency and being able to be as diverse as you can, whether it's being in a locker room with this personality, that personality, and, being able to, create a confident and positive environment all around as an individual. And between that, with the baseball company, As you know, I've now taken a role as an assistant coach with Team USA Deaf Baseball team, as well as getting ready to compete in the Deaf Olympics for hockey that's taking place in January. So most of it is just using my story, physically just showing people and over all my platforms that you can want something and don't let any loss or disability slow you down.
Yeah, and that's where I think in your case, you've lived by the example that you set for these young men and athletes that you're modeling in baseball. But, you know, we're talking about this issue where you've lived with this your entire life. And when did you first realize that your hearing loss wasn't just an ear issue that impacted you, but something that does affect your overall physical and mental health? Aside from that bullying part where kids were motivating you to be better, stronger, faster, when did you really realize for the first time that hearing loss just wasn't something that affected your ears, but overall physical and mental health?
Oh, that has to be when I was in grade 7 or 7th grade, as you guys would call it. And I was training to be quarterback for our great upcoming grade 8 team. So in spring, it was more flag style. We didn't have to wear helmets. And finally, once I got into the winter season in grade 8 and I was set to be quarterback because of my baseball background and my ability to throw. But when I couldn't fit my hearing aids in the helmet, and the head coach said, well, you know, you're a liability, so I can't put you out there. And they made me the field goal kicker. So I think that was the turning point for me where I finally, you know, I had to just, I don't know, to be honest with you, I was so devastated and so upset about it that was the first time that it mentally took a toll on me.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, that moved on to baseball, whether it was being on base and coaches being worried that I couldn't hear them yelling back, whether a pitcher was picking off, to being a liability in the outfield. And all of those things were a reason why I took to the physicality side, why I was always the first one there, why I was always trying to create a different story in everyone's mindset that they couldn't talk about anything else. They couldn't talk about my hearing loss because I was doing everything else so correct. And I guess I was just first everywhere, and that's all they were talking about.
Well, are there any sports that you can't do? So now football, I didn't know in the past that you started in 7th grade playing football, but how demoralizing that must have been where you really felt different. I mean, it reminds me of John Maxwell, who talks about the law of the lid. And your coach undoubtedly was out of concern, you know, for your safety of being able to hear the signals. But for you and for me, I think I would interpret it the same way. I see, okay, I'm different. You know, I can't play the position that I want to play, and as a naturally gifted athlete and want to be the quarterback, be told that, nope, you're the law of the lid. You've got to be the kicker, an individual contributor rather than somebody leading the rest of the team by calling the signals.
And the worst part about all of that is the grade 8 games when we were playing football, there was no defense. So when I was kicking the field goal, I just had a time clock. So for me, being a competitive hockey player and being like a physical guy, this was just like demoralizing.
Yeah. Well, and you know, innovation can come out of that too. A lot of people aren't aware, but I know you're familiar with Gallaudet College. Gallaudet was instrumental in developing the modern huddle as we know it. Were there any other things that you did that you adapted or adapt now as you're working to coach baseball, young baseball players, or use with yourself as you're communicating on the hockey ice?
Actually, taking that question, I think the biggest thing that I have adapted to others is the youth, the young kids, and especially the generation now who, you know, they're so addicted to their tablets and having their heads in their phones that having conversations now, they struggle to look up at you. Well, if I can't read your lips, then I have a hard time communicating. So they get in the habit of looking at me in the face because I have to communicate with them that I can't hear you. And at such a young age. So I think that's really rubbed off on a lot of our young community. And when they come in, they know that the last thing they want to do is disappoint us. So like their coaches, their mentors. So I think that's been a big example of, what I can bring to the table.
Yeah. Did your hearing loss, we've talked about the disability of hearing loss, but did your hearing loss or any element of it improve any part of your game on the ice or on the field, whether in focus or visual processing or anticipation compared to those without hearing loss?
Well, aside from busing your physicality side, yeah, absolutely. It's preparation. So knowing situations of the game in baseball in the field, especially being a center fielder, I had to know everything from the speed of the guy hitting, the guy on first, the guy on second, the speed of my cuts and relays getting to proper positions, all those kind of things. Know the situation of the game a lot more because I can't necessarily hear if we're cutting 2, cutting 3, but I always knew where my lead man was. So that was a huge thing. It's reading the gridiron before things happen and having a certain point of premonition.
Yeah, really relying in some cases on your other senses to sort of augment what the hearing wouldn't provide you. But now turning a little bit to technology, you've been wearing Starkey devices for some time now. What do you see in terms of the advances in hearing technology that enable you? You mentioned in 7th grade when the coach didn't allow you or was worried about wearing a helmet over your hearing aids because they wouldn't be able to be accommodated under a helmet. We've seen certainly lots of improvements in feedback cancellation and performance for devices, but talk a little bit about the way that technology has impacted you and your ability to be able to have a better sense on the field or on the ice or off.
Well, it's been amazing between what you just said and the in-the-ear hearing aids, and obviously having the hearing aids be a lot more waterproof. These things would have been such an advantage for me because I remember after every single hockey game, I couldn't even get through the second period without them knocking out and having to take them out and just playing without them anyways. But the advantages of just more confidence everywhere I go. Having the 360 hearing sense and, them being waterproof and just being around the ocean or the pool with my friends. All these things are a huge, huge compliment to just, like I said, having conversations, being in a community and just engaging more. And your social awareness is incredible. Being out in places like restaurants and, loud environments like F1, where I'm here in Miami to do, it's being able to, use the edge mode and cancel out certain types of the microphones so that I can focus on what's going on in front of me. These are such game changers in life, and the evolution has been incredible. And these are the things that I can't rave about enough to people who ask me questions about hearing all over the world.
Yeah, for sure. I think that in the Omega AI, that DNN 360 that you articulated so well really helps with not only detecting that sound is present, helping you understand speech in the presence of background noise better when the crowd's cheering, et cetera, but then also that spatial awareness that a lot of people take for granted. So with your story, where we focused on someone who's lived with hearing loss, your whole life, and as I said, I admire the way that you've turned that into an advantage for you personally, and then also being an advocate for others with hearing loss. Let's talk a little bit about why it is that men delay addressing hearing health issues when they start to experience them. Now, do you have any friends who maybe are starting to see, maybe because they've been around Formula One without wearing hearing protection too long, or musicians, or simply when they get to my age, we start to see a higher percentage of people who never had hearing difficulties previously who are encountering it, but the average man typically delays longer than the overall average from the time that they think they have a hearing loss or their friends tell them they should do something about their hearing to when they actually translate that into action.
I think because men assume that it will take away their ability to be an alpha. So I think that's all men would think is like, all men struggle with different things as well. When you talk about men's health, we talk about being vulnerable and showcasing that. They think that it takes away from their ability to really be a man. And that's just not the case. You can ask for help as a man, woman, child, everybody, and I had to, like I said, with my hearing loss, if it was that, then I was never going to be a man because there was nothing that was taken away. It was already gone.
Right.
So for me, that's what I explain to the guys all the time. It's just like, you're not going to take away any part of your manhood. Right. Getting hearing aids. You're not going to become this beta in your mind.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not going to happen. What it's going to do is it's going to help allow you to communicate more, to engage in conversation. You want to be a man of the household, woman of the household, at any part of that, you have to be able to communicate. And in order to communicate, what do you have to do? You have to intake information. So you intake information and then you deliver. So I talk to people all the time, and now after a few years that we've spoken, and I'm getting a little bit older now, and there are more and more people reaching out to me because all of my friends my age are actually starting to go through the process now.
Yeah.
And to me, I hate to see it, but I'm happy that I'm there to be able to guide them through it, because it is a very misunderstood, and it's one of the biggest unknowns probably when it comes to disabilities.
Yes, and it's a invisible or silent disability that creeps up with you. It can strike clearly your embodiment of the fact that hearing loss can strike at any age and any gender, any ethnicity. It can happen to anyone, but it is true that the longer you live, the more likely you are that you're going to have a hearing loss. When I was younger, my friends would all say, audiology, what? What is it that you do exactly? And now they're all saying, hey, could you test my hearing? Because my partner, my wife, is saying, I have difficulty, or I'm not paying attention anymore. And I think you nailed it in terms of the definition of the way that we connect to each other. Being an alpha means that you're taking care of everyone around you in your head. And if anyone says that hearing loss is a sign of weakness, I'm going to refer them to you as the future, because you're a perfect example of someone who can be physically and mentally at the top of their game and have a hearing loss. And so, that's one thing I'm going to point to. The other is, the issues that we're starting to see in the literature and in the popular media, more and more. Hearing loss doesn't occur in a vacuum, and it is often occurring with cardiovascular disease, people who are at risk of heart attack or have high blood pressure, have had a stroke or have that in their family, are at increased risk of hearing loss. There's high comorbidity. And then the other thing, as you get older and older, you start to get to my age, people start worrying about cognition and untreated hearing loss. And so, that's another area, an angle, I think, that you could point out to your friends as they start thinking about, I'll just live with it. It should not be, for men or women, just an expected complication of having more birthdays.
Yeah, I feel like more people are starting to understand that brain health is a lot linked to hearing disability. And that's why when I hear my friends talk about, oh, my father or my mother needs hearing aids, I was like, please go get them now. I mean, I was bothering my father for years, and then finally he's wearing them now, because the last thing I want him to do is sit idle at the dinner table and completely isolate himself from conversation and shutting off certain parts of his brain that is going to make him at risk for dementia down the road. So these are all different things that people are starting to understand. And I think that Mr. Austin says it the best when he just talks about, he links hearing impairment to brain health. And he's taught me so much. In just 2 visits, I've sat in an office with him, and it's truly incredible what he's done. And, it's creating healthable hearing aids. I mean, this is the future. This is the next gen, and it's amazing to see. But the one thing that I'm super happy with is people are starting to ask more questions. Yeah. People are starting to realize what I had to overcome. And they're asking me questions, but the biggest question of us all is, how have you done this for so long? how did you do it? I mean, I would take what I've had to go through, and now knowing what I know now, for the inevitable that is going to happen to you guys and the next person. I've been prepared my entire life for this. And to lose it at 35, 36, 37, 40 years old, I would feel unfortunate in your circumstance.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you brought up the health and wellness connection too. I remember the last time we talked, we spoke a little bit about one of the health and wellness features that we've incorporated in our devices since 2019, and that was initially a fall detection and alerting mechanism. So if someone had a family member who was wearing hearing aids and they were worried about the fact that hearing and balance are really tied together. Elevated risk of falling comes with even just a mild degree of hearing loss in untreated hearing loss, and that increases with greater amounts of hearing loss. And we've continued to develop that connection and link between hearing and balance by then focusing on balance risk assessment. And the last time we talked, we had just come up with this balance risk assessment so that people could identify if they have a balance, gait, or strength deficiency. And you said, shoot, I can use that to make sure that I'm at the top of my game, whether I'm playing baseball or hockey. And you flip the script to turn that into a way to compete with yourself to get better so that you could be at your physical peak. And I just loved that. And I continue to see now we actually have balance training exercises so that if you chose, you could, if you had some risk of balance, gait, or strength, you could specifically target exercises to help overcome that deficiency so that you can continue to be and play at the top of your game. So I'm glad you really brought that up. And I remember from our last conversation how you flipped that from something that we think of someone old and decrepit, kind of worried about falling over. And you said, I can use that and I'm at the top of my game in sport.
Oh, absolutely. Being, especially getting ready for hockey. And like I said, getting a little bit older, my balance isn't like it was when I was 25, 27 in my prime. So yeah, being able to use that and incorporate it into my fitness. I mean, it's been incredible. And obviously using the Starkey app as well when it comes to, my calories, burning my calories and all those things. But obviously just looking at my social engagement. How much conversation I have through the day. I love to look at those scores because back in the day, like we said, me growing up as a young kid, I did isolate myself. I didn't go out there and put myself out there and have conversation. Yeah. So it's been truly incredible to play a game within a game called life.
Exactly. And it's just against yourself. And you're looking at increasing that social. You brought up your dad, and if people see this in family members or in themselves as they start to acquire hearing loss. If they haven't lived with it their whole life, but now they've been socially active people who want to be out there with their friends, with their family. But if you can't hear, you start to withdraw, just like you said with your dad. And thinking about the way that modern athletes are using technology to quantify their fitness levels, you've translated that into using the hearing aids with those inertial measurement units to count your physical activity in terms of your steps and your exercise and whether you're getting up and moving around, and you're turning that into another way that you can quantify and use your social engagement to sort of ensure that physically and with your cognitive function, your social engagement, that you're motivating yourself every day to do better.
Yeah, you nailed it 100%. Back in the day, I isolated myself. I took to video games, and now this is basically my mature video game. Like I said, and every day I'm just competing against myself, and it's just doing that. I'm starting to just try and end the stigma in my own way and give people an opportunity to come up to me and have a conversation. It's the first thing I bring up every day, but when I meet new people, but I try and get through it as a normal person without having to make them look at me a different way. And then after that, it was, by the way, after like a day or two of having conversation, I'm legally deaf. And they'll be like, no way. And then they'll start having a conversation. So I try and earn the conversations first. And then, but if I'm really having trouble, obviously I have no embarrassment or insecurity to right out say, hey, I'm legally deaf. Could you look at me like, or could we go somewhere quieter and have a conversation? And then I can explain it to you.
Yeah, tell those alpha male buddies of yours that they can be an alpha male and use Omega AI and compete with themselves and even compete with their friends in terms of how much physical activity, social engagement they can do, so they can continue to flex that part of their ego while wearing hearing aids. And in another area, I think, you mentioned that you're down in Miami for the Formula One race. Another area that we're really active with, and one of our fastest growing divisions, is in sound gear to wear hearing protection devices and active hearing protection devices to prevent hearing loss from occurring before it happens. Because unfortunately, and a lot of times when you're young and you're 20, you think you're impervious or bulletproof from noise damage. But Formula One, like NASCAR, where we have a sponsorship with William Swalich, is a very noisy sport. And if we can prevent hearing loss from occurring due to hobbies or occupations, there's plenty of work for us to go around to address all of those who've got hearing loss for other reasons than something that is preventable by noise exposure. So while you're in Miami, remind them that we have solutions in our sound gear division to help prevent hearing loss when you're wanting to participate in noisy concerts or noisy activities like Formula One races.
Oh, that's one of the biggest things that I give to my friends, the advice, because I'm always traveling with all my best friends, whether it is just different F1s all over the world, or whether it's festivals and concerts all over the world, because for my big passion and love for music. And that's the first thing I tell them. It's just like, your hearing is depleting slowly while you guys are doing this so much. I was like, so you guys have to start paying attention to that. I was like, we're not getting any younger. So they're starting to understand now. After like a concert, we'll get back to the house and they'll have a little bit of ringing in their ears, or they won't hear as well for a couple of days, they feel like. I'm like, well, I'm sitting up there and my hearing aids are not allowing me here to decibel range that it gives damage to me. So these are the things I'm trying to explain to you. So I've been telling them a lot about that Starkey Sound Gear, and that they should definitely get fitted.
Yeah, another good tip for Men's Hearing Month is just, if you're engaged in any noisy activity, concerts, for people that are hunters or like to target shoot, if their ears are ringing after they engage in an activity, or the Formula One race this weekend, if their ears are ringing, that's often a cry for help, that they've caused some temporary damage that can translate into permanent damage over time. And so any of those friends that after they come out of a concert or finish shooting and their ears feel stuffy or are ringing, they should think about using hearing protection next time they're engaged in that activity, because it is likely a cry for help on the part of their hearing and their ears.
Exactly, 100%.
So as we're getting ready to wrap up, I guess my question for you would be, as somebody that has seen the benefits of amplification throughout your life, helping to overcome some barriers and prejudice that was laid in front of you because of your hearing loss, that isolation you felt, motivating that and turning it into an advantage that you could leverage with getting into peak physical shape and getting at the top of your game in baseball and in hockey. What advice would you give people, men in particular, because we're talking for Men's Health Month, that if they suspect they have a hearing loss or others around them are saying something about their hearing, what advice do you have? You've already thrown a lot of ideas out here, but is there any single thing that they could do this week or this month as they're listening to this episode to help connect hearing to overall health and wellness?
I would say, aside from getting checked, seeing audiologists, and exploring and learning more about hearing loss, it's wake up every day and walk out that door and be your authentic self. I mean, everyone wants to be what in this world? They want to be loved. Yes. Okay, so be loved for the right reasons. If you're going through that unfortunate circumstance and you have to change yourself as a human being or an individual just to get somebody to like or love you, then you're not doing it right. You're not living this life the right way. So I would say the biggest advice I can be is be you. Be you, and if people are going to accept that, then those are the people you want around you in your circle. If they're not, and they look at you differently like a beta now and not the alpha male that they were used to, then they shouldn't be in your life in the first place. And growing up in my life, I learned that at a younger age than most. So my circle got a lot smaller, but at the same time, it allowed me to be me and be confident. And people that have accepted it, they're the ones that are in my life every day now, and I would do anything for them. So that's the advice I give everybody.
That's so well said. And it is often the case that across gender, men often have fewer close friends than our female counterparts. And, I just think how fortunate people are to have you as a role model. I just so enjoy our conversations. Every time I learn something new from you about the way that you're trying to be your authentic self and that you're at the top of your game. And I'm so grateful for all that you do as an advocate for those with hearing loss, and particularly during Men's Health Month, the young men that are either facing or have lived with hearing loss and can use sport as a mechanism of building that bond and togetherness. I'm just grateful that we get the opportunity to sit down every couple of years, and I look forward to the next time that we'll do that. So thank you, Tyson.
Hey, I appreciate it. I'm learning as I go still.
Well, you're a great advocate for us, and for all of you watching this episode of Starkey Sound Bites, please, again, like and subscribe, and I would encourage you to follow Tyson as he gets ready to go for the Deaf Olympics in hockey representing Canada. And also just keep an eye on him, because you're a guy I love to watch. I follow you on social media. And again, thank you very much for sharing this information and your knowledge and your experience with us today.
Hey, always a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. Enjoy Formula One this weekend. Thanks. And we'll see you again soon. And thanks for listening to Sound Bites to our audience.